I think we're close to settled. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tom Green. I'm president of Vermont College of Fine Arts. It's an honor to welcome you to this historic campus, to this amazing room. I also want to give a warm welcome to the millions watching around the world through the miracle of television. That usually gets a better laugh than that, but I guess it's early in the afternoon. So it is so great to have this event here today. It was, when this award came to our attention, and by the way, I have to say, and some of the folks are over here, and they're in your program, but it's really an amazing patchwork across the state of people working for organizations that Hogan has impacted, and we all do different things. I'm in higher education, there are people in social services, there are people who are doctors, and if we have anything in common, it's that we serve the public in different ways and we try to make people's lives better. And that has always been the life work of Hogan, who is a dear friend of mine. And the building you're in today, I will tell you, is construction completed on it around 12 days ago. Any of you who had been in here before, this is a 1930s basketball gymnasium. And now it is a multi-use art exhibition space. It's the space where our students will play music. It's the space where our students will exhibit their artwork. It will become, I think, a vibrant community space. And it's a space that, frankly, wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the person who this award is named after, and that's Hogan, because 7 years ago, when I began what was a quixotic effort to start Vermont College of Fine Arts, Hogan found me. And my friend Chris Graff, who I think is due to be here today but isn't here yet, but is also on the board of the Vermont College of Fine Arts, once said to me, you can tell what's important in Vermont by where Hogan is. And so when found me, I thought, okay, this is going to happen. We're doing something important. And was the chair of our Board of Trustees for a number of years, and he helped create a Board of Trustees that, when we became the fastest college in the history of the New England Association of Schools and Colleges to get accredited, which is a really significant process in higher education, they said to me it's the best Board of Trustees they'd seen in higher education anywhere. And that was a real tribute to So it is a great honor to welcome you here. I am so excited about this award. I'm so excited about what this award does for Vermont. I'm so excited about what it says to people who work in these challenging fields, who do interesting work, who try to uplift the work of all Vermonters, and that's what we're here to celebrate today. So welcome, glad you're here, and now I'm going to turn it over to Paula.
And thanks, Tom, again for hosting us today. This really is a beautiful space for us. Just wanted to point out to you the slides that are rotating there. There's some personal pictures, some professional pictures of and friends and family. And there's also, of course, some data trend lines about things that have changed, hopefully for the better. I just wanted you to know what you were looking at. About a year, in July 2014, a group of us got together and said, what about and these incredible contributions that he's made to Vermont, to the nation, internationally? What could we do to really look at that and honor that? And the first idea was a big poster on Church Street that said, Hogan rocks. And then we thought, no, probably that's not going to do it. But let's see what we could do. And this group of people, who I'd like to invite up right now to stand with me, the planning group for this, we said, let's try to figure out what it is that does. How does he do his work in such a way that these things happen? How can we really identify, put into words, the spirit of the work that does with all of us? And how can we really identify it so that we can talk about it to other people, so that we can recognize it in other people and celebrate that, so that it will keep going in a really good way? So here's what we came up with. We came up with community, that really the actions in the community, at the community level, the community people, it's community driven. And I think that that's certainly been shown in many of the things that we've been talking about. Second thing is relationships, and that goes right along with community. The connections and relationships that we all have with each other, and the has with many of you. The third thing was, you're not going to be surprised, data. The one working with one of the things that we definitely noticed is, Cheryl, Paula, Scott, how are we doing on that project? And then we start to say something in 3 sentences. No, just show me the data. Did we get any results? Results are really the important thing here. Doesn't have to always be perfect, but we can use these results to then shape the next thing we should do if we're not going in the right direction. And the final thing is enthusiasm. I'm sure I don't have to explain that to anybody, but I always think of it as Kahn saying, let's all get these boats rowing in the same direction. But the enthusiasm part comes that Kahn's the first one in the boat, and everybody else is trying to catch up with him and get going. So I hope that summarizes for you some of the things that we really wanted to honor in this award. I want to introduce the committee members, and they'll just raise their hands. Paul Silo, he's the president and CEO of the Public Assets Institute. Karen Hine, who was on the Green Mountain Care Board, but now she would just describe herself as a shepherdess of goats. Scott Johnson, who's the executive director of the Lamoille Family Center. Cheryl Mitchell from Treleaven. Alyssa Albach from here at the Vermont College of Fine Arts. And Diana Wally, Benchmarks for Better Vermont. Stuart Comstock-Gay, he's the president and CEO of the Vermont Community Foundation. I want to say special thanks to the Community Foundation for providing the administrative and processing support for this whole award and the committee and everything. That was a great thing. Also, I just want to acknowledge Frank Farrow. Frank, where are you? The director of the Center for the Study of Social Policy. He's been a partner to Vermont and a colleague and friend of Kahn's for 25 years, and he really donated a lot of his communication director's time, thank you, for the case statement and the program that we have today. I also want to thank all of you that contributed to this effort, financially as well as emotionally and spiritually, by being here today. We raised $125,000 so that this award can go on and continue to recognize people that are working in the way that Kahn really has. One more thing. Karen Hine found this beautiful basket, and if you can't see it from where you are, I'll describe that it has a maze in the middle and people around the side. Marion Cruz Odom, the weaver, has this, that there's one person in here. So Karen wrote something that really how this spoke to her, that we all agree with. The image really represents Kahn leading us into unknown territory where the path is uncertain. Many choices present themselves, yet he leads us forward with curiosity, intelligence, forcefully, reassuring that by taking the journey we will discover, not only alone but together, the inner meeting. I think that really is a lovely way for us to think about the work that we've done, the work that we're going forward with, because this is really definitely... So, Kahn, I just want you to see, this is from our hearts to yours. This work, what we're doing. Scott?
A good colleague and friend of Kahn's and a colleague and friend to many of us in Vermont. Mark Friedman couldn't be here. Unfortunately for him, he's in Australia doing an RBA conference. But his new book, Trying Hard is Not Good Enough, just came out, 10th edition, and he wanted to make sure that I presented it to Kahn because he knew if he sent it to Kahn in Plainfield that Kahn wouldn't bring it here. And so let me read to you, to my dear friend Kahn, congratulations on the well-deserved recognition of your contribution to the people of Vermont. Your anywhere has led to everywhere. We're all proud of you. Best to you and Jeanette. Mark.
And now our MC for the evening of this event, Sister Janice Ryan. She probably needs no introduction to anybody in this audience because she's been working in so many of very important issues for kids, adults, families, everybody in Vermont. She was the past president of Trinity College. She worked to ban landmines in D.C. She's worked on education policy, on criminal justice issues, especially the death penalty. So I'm not going to say any more, but I am so thrilled to welcome her to MC this whole event for us. Thank you so much for doing that, Sister Janice.
I'm looking for God. Thank you. What a tribute. What a tribute. Let's hear it for the man. Yay! And you can't pass that on to anyone else, Con Hogan. And at Con's table, I would like to introduce to you Lady Jeanette. Would you stand, please? And the story behind the lady you would find in Also Met Along the Way. And it is very funny. At the table also, and I'm not sure who is able to be here, but is Neil and his wife Becky here? Where are you, Neil? Would you stand? Neil Hogan and his wife Becky. Thank you, Neil and Becky. And Ruth and Bo, are you here? There is Ruth, Bo, thank you. And daughters Ashlyn and Olivia, are they here? Would you stand, granddaughters? Yay, women! Thank you. And did Brother Mike make it? Brother Mike, would you mind standing? And Mike's significant other, Bonnie? There. Con, there's nothing like family to give you humility at an event like this. I well know. The programs asked me to give some thoughts about Con, and I really have spent time trying to remember when I first met the tall man. I'm not sure. It goes that far back. And his presence in my life became much closer when Sister Elizabeth Cannon was the secretary of the agency. And Con was the commissioner of, or worked for Commissioner of Corrections. And Elizabeth would come home just shaking her head this way once she had that position. But the story, which is in a book, so it's public, that Con told about the two of them, and Elizabeth was just about 5 feet tall and fairly new in her position and stayed a little later than usual, and this is in the Waterbury complex that had lots of corridors way down underneath the first floor. So Con describes it, both of them working later. He hears this tap, 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 tap coming down the corridor. And it turns out Sister Elizabeth appears in his doorway and says, and I can see it happening with a large smile, "And sir, what do you do?" He says, "I'm Con Hogan, and I'm the Commissioner of Corrections." And both Elizabeth and Con are known to tell a story, sometimes with a stretch. I'm only reporting what's said. And According to Con, remember she's 5 foot, she takes a hold of his tie, pulls it gently, and says, "Don't let anything bad happen." Now, I tell that story because if Elizabeth Cannon were at this event today, God rest her, I am sure she would be giving testimony. Con always makes things better. And the data is about making things better. Also, I thought about reviewing the high points of Con's resume. But my doctor said the strain would be too much. And in addition to that, it's in your program. So for those of you who have not at some point worked, benefited, or been sentenced to working for or with Con, you can review the past yourselves. I decided to do something a little unusual to entertain Con rather than boring him with what he already knows, that is, where he's been. So I decided, Con, and I selected, in fact, I went into Elizabeth Candon's drawer and pulled out some Irish toast. And I couldn't select one. I selected 4. I limited myself, Scott Johnson, I really did. The first one is, may the roof above us never fall in, and may we friends gathered below never fall out. When I first read that, I thought, Tom Green, God bless us, you don't want the roof to fall in. Sorry, Tom, give you heart failure. The second one, I love this. May the grass grow long on the road to hell for the want of use. You didn't get that right away. Maybe some of you didn't have religious background. See me after, I will explain. The third one is, may you have the hindsight, Con, to know where you've been, the foresight to know where you are going, and the insight to know when you've gone too far. What can I say? And the last one, may the road rise to meet you, may the wind always be at your back, the sunshine warm upon your face, and the rain fall soft upon your fields, of which you have an abundance. And those, my friend, I give to you in love, and this comes the moment to introduce Con Hogan. And do you want the mic there, Con, or are you coming up? Come up. The introductions, please read your programs. The introduction to Con is there in detail. And I would simply say that the man on his way to the podium is a man who I learned early on has high expectations, but never higher than he has for himself. And I would also say this is a much friendlier gathering than some of the gatherings in the past I've been to for you.
Sister Janice didn't give you the best toast. This one came from her colleague, Sister Camden, who, as she described, was a very small woman. The toast went something like this: if you cannot change the minds of your enemies with logic and reason, break their legs. From a Catholic nun. I really think the committee who created this grand idea, and it is a grand idea, of $15,000 each year to a worthy leader in midstream, they deserve a real round of applause. I had prepared a talk that I am not going to bore you with. Is Rick Mills still here? Come on up. Rick is the former Commissioner of Education back in the 90s. He was a marvelous leader. When we came up, come on up, Rick. When we came up with this idea of...
Nothing good can come of this, you know.
Well, I know that, and we haven't talked for 20 years. He has no idea what I'm about to do. But when I first met Rick, we were coming off some very difficult budget hearings with Governor Snelling in 1991, when the state was plummeting toward a major deficit. I happened to be on that committee with the governor. Rick testified, and after the meeting, and it was known that I was going to go over to Human Services, he came up and said, do you remember?
Oh, I do.
What did you say?
I said, these are all our children.
That's right.
We have to work together. And we did.
That's exactly what he said. And again, we haven't talked for 20 years, and I didn't give him a tip-off on this. When we grabbed, don't go away, you're not done yet. When we grabbed hold of the idea of Success by Six, which was a message of hope in a period where we were plummeting into a recession that it well exceeded $100 million, and that was, what, 25, 30 years ago, Rick grabbed hold of it. And our two organizations almost became one on this subject. Rick and I would get in a car, and we probably visited maybe 15 communities in this state where we didn't have a PowerPoint, we didn't have notes, we just stood there and talked. And we educated or shared what we thought we knew about outcomes and indicators. Rick, we have a group here in Montpelier that's interested in this subject. Come on up. We have one mic. Now, what is there about this stuff that makes it potentially so powerful?
I found it scary, actually. If you recall the details, we would let it be known in these 15 communities, one at a time, that we were coming together, and then you would say a little later that you weren't coming if all the educators weren't there.
That's right. I forgot
And
that.
so I would say, well, I'm not coming if all the people from Human Services are not there. And so there'd be this mob, and they'd sit kind of like an 8th grade dance. Your team on one side, my team on the other. And then we'd flip a coin.
Yep.
And whoever won the toss got the mic first. But there was only one mic and no podium.
And we interrupted each other.
Well,
You would give a line, I would give a line. I would interrupt you and say, are you sure about that? And we just had a hell of a set of conversations with the people around the state of Vermont. And I am a believer that those conversations had a lot to do with uncorking, and for that period, an amazing time of community energy and caring around specific indicators that individual communities could do something about. And this man, we were partners, and it was a good feeling.
It's an honor to know you.
My last comment is that, you know, leadership takes many forms. The outcomes and indicators work that we did was one way of doing it, but there are hundreds of ways to lead and hundreds of places where people can lead. I'm looking at the three wonderful final candidates we have for this award today, and just looking at the three different approaches to leadership, each one very, very solid. You look at Jay Craven. Jay has this unbelievable ability to take the history and traditions of Vermont and organize them in a way that the soul of Vermont is absolutely opened up for all of us to see. That's leadership, and he deserves some major credit for that. Tom Longstreth, the CEO of the Recycle program, started out as people would initially think this is simply a recycling program. But he has taken that basic idea and expanded it into things like a community education center, a community entertainment center, a job development program. His leadership is distinctly different than the other candidates. He deserves some major credit for that. And our winner, and I know that Cheryl is going to introduce Ellen properly, as it should be, but I first ran into Ellen, if you will, back in the 90s when she was at the Peace and Justice Center over in Burlington, and her major contribution to our world at that time was the livable wage, and not just the words of livable wage, but what are the details of it? What are the numbers? How do they work? She caught my attention at that time. She was ahead of the curve nationally, and when you look and see what's happening today, that work really is paying off. The other thing is, Jeanette and I were in the car one day not too long ago, and we heard her on the Mark Johnson show talk about the farm to family work. I've not met anyone who can dig deeper into a subject and present it more broadly than she can. She deserves major applause. My last comment is a personal one. When the committee came together to pull this grand idea off, they worked for some months on it, and they didn't tell me. And then months later, they called my wife, Jeanette, told her about it, and she didn't tell me. It wasn't until much later in the game that I learned about it. I think it was a very indescript email from Cheryl Mitchell that says, oh, by the way, right? So I am humble about this. This wasn't supposed to be about me today. It's supposed to be about our candidates and the work that they have done and the work they're about to do. So I thank you all deeply for coming out for this event. Thank you.
So Sister Janice and I are sitting back there thinking, okay, our part of the program is over, but I am just going to take a moment to ask our two runners-up to stand, because some of you don't actually know who they are. So, Jay, would you just stand to be acknowledged again? And Tom, could you also stand? So I felt like the member of our committee who drew the lottery prize, because I get to introduce Ellen. But first I wanted to tell you a little bit about why this award, how we came to choose the person that we chose, and then just a tiny bit before Ellen comes up to speak. Paul has told you most of the why, but as we started looking at the candidates and the nominations, we received nominations across the entire spectrum of the kinds of activities that Con has been involved in, from agriculture to early childhood services to business to community development to healthcare to education, just a wide. So we thank many of you are nominators out there in the audience today, and many of you were people who were nominated. And we hope that you will participate again next year. The idea of this award was really to recognize somebody that both for their accomplishments, but more somebody that works in the world in many of the same ways that Con does, that is really passionate about improving the well-being of Vermonters, that uses data, people who are not afraid to take risks, people who are not afraid to make mid-course corrections, and people who bring people together across all different walks of life, across all different kinds of skills and experience. In the interest of being data-driven, Paul Celo made us a scoring rubric for all of these 29 nominations, so we all on the committee had to score them. I was thinking, oh my God, do I have to really do this? But it was actually a very helpful process. But then in the final discussions, we worked in small teams, and as each team got to present their top choices, it was a pretty exciting time, and we recognized how many incredible people are out there doing this kind of work of bringing communities together, bringing people together to make Vermont a better place. The person who we selected for our inaugural year is somebody that we feel really embodies so many of the things that Con has valued and that we have valued about him. Not just the things that I mentioned earlier, but also this sense of giving credit to other people, being a mentor for other people, really changing the face of what goes on in our state. And I'm just going to share two short memories that I was thrilled that we finally came down with Ellen, and I think the final one was people who are totally on fire. One of her references said, you know, you got to watch out when you're working with Ellen, because she'll get an idea and you'll lean forward and it's like trying to get a sip of water out of a fire hose that's on full blast. So just you have to watch out a little bit for that. But I first met Ellen when she and Con and a couple of other people were on the board of the Vermont Community Foundation, and the idea that the Community Foundation should invest their assets in Vermont was coming up, and just how eloquent Ellen was, but also watching the interactions as she and Con and Lisa Lorimer and Kevin and a couple of other people really hashed out a way to do that that was thoughtful, that would not jeopardize the endowment of the foundation and would in fact shift the ways we thought. So that one was exciting. We also had the wonderful opportunity, a couple of us, to have lunch with Ellen and her partner Susanna and Con and Jeanette a while back. So I want to tell you the story of the chess club, which she told us. So Ellen was one of the early on participants in the Snelling Center's Vermont Leadership Institute. So she said at the end, it was at that time she was still working with the Peace and Justice Center. She said, so some of us graduates got together to support each other, and we came up with this process where they put you on the hot seat, you sit there, they ask you a bunch of questions. So it was her turn, she was on the hot seat, people asked a bunch of questions. And at the end, instead of answering her own questions, they said, so Ellen, it's time for you to quit your job. She said, what? Said, you're doing a really excellent job, but we all think you've got even bigger and more important things to do. You should quit your job. You should go to the Kennedy School. You should move on to the next stage of your life. And she did it. She tied up all the loose ends, which Ellen always does. If she's doing something, she's going to do it fully. And then she went to the Kennedy School, and she started that same process for people there. So I was just blown away. So anyway, again, you can read all of Ellen's amazing accomplishments, not all of them, a few of them, in the brochure, but we'd like to invite you, Ellen, to come up and give some reflections.
Wow. Thank you all for coming. And thank you so much to Con Hogan and to the Con Hogan Award Committee, those who made financial contributions to this award, to VCF. I'm just really totally blown away, so thank you. And all those who nominated me for the award, that was also just so heartening. The number of emails and cards and congratulatory remarks have just been really quite overwhelming. I'm looking forward to tomorrow to sort of like come down from it all. I really am just so incredibly deeply honored by this award and recognition. And I'm really so pleased to come and share this with you, and in celebration of the incredible work that Con Hogan has done over his lifetime. It really means quite a lot to me. He has been somebody that I've really always looked up to, and as was said, data is a really important part of making good decisions, and Con really was the person that pioneered that and modeled that, and so you rock, man. So I want to thank Con for his life's work and his contribution on behalf of children and families in Vermont. I met Con actually and his entire senior staff, I think it was in 1997, in order to walk them through the job gap study findings and to provide them with some information that might be helpful to their work. At the time, 1997, I was totally naive about how government works, who Con was, and or how many thousands of Vermonters are their lives are touched by the Agency of Human Services every year and all the organizations that the agency supports. So I really had no idea what I was walking into when I went to the Waterbury office complex, and Con had me come into his conference room, and I had no idea who these people were in the room, and they were some of the most influential, important movers and shakers at that time, and all of whom are incredibly accomplished. So Con welcomed me into that, and it was quite an eye-opener, so thank you for that lesson. I also want to thank you, Con, for being so thoughtful about how good data can inform the actual design of our programs and public policy, because really your bold strategic leadership has served as such a good example for all of us, as we've been hearing about. So this recognition from my work and leadership in Con's name is deeply humbling. Humbling because, as we all know, no one does this work alone. It's been my incredible good fortune to be mentored by generous and strategic leaders and to work with so many talented, bright, caring, dedicated co-workers, collaborators, and colleagues over the years. This award really is a recognition of what we have done together. I owe a lot of gratitude to a number of people in my life, a lot of important people who have opened doors and have collaborated with me very early on in my career that I think were really life changers. So I'm going to start with some thank yous, because these people really deserve our thanks. They deserve my thanks. And it's a reminder, I want this to be a reminder to all of you in the room, that you all have opportunities to open doors and to support the work of people around you. I hope you realize that your choices to provide input, open doors, or create opportunities for young professionals often leads to the creation of the next generation of our leaders. So first and foremost, I have to give a really huge thanks to Doug Hoffer, who's now our incredible auditor of accounts. He has brought integrity and professionalism back to that office over the last 3 years and has just done an incredible amount of work. And Con, you should know, when Doug walked into the room and I gave him a hug, he saw the slides up there and he was just like, oh look, there's data! So without Doug, truthfully, the Vermont Job Gap Study would never have happened, and the Livable Wage campaign would have had no working basis. He's also responsible for producing the Leaky Bucket Report, which highlighted the economic opportunity to keep more of our food, forest, and energy dollars here in Vermont, and that has been has led directly to our farm-to-plate work at the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund. And then, of course, there was Jan Eastman, who was one of the founders of the Chess Club. But it was Jan, who was then at the Snelling Center for Government, who saw the Job Gap Study's potential, and she connected me with people like Robbie Harold at USDA Rural Development at that time, Charlotte Stetson and Dave Rahr at the Community Foundation. They were the ones that provided the critical early on financial support and encouraged my leadership. So then these connections led me to be on the board of the Community Foundation for 8 years. While I was in my early 30s, and it was really shaped a lot of it was just an incredible education. It strengthened my connections to people like Con and Cheryl, introduced me to even more people that were important, and it really did open up a lot of additional doors for me. Another important person in my life was Gretchen Morris. She was a big-time mentor for me, as she's been for so many women over the years. She encouraged me to join the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, which is very early in my 30s again, which helped me to learn about Vermont's land use laws. And that, again, has had a big impact on how I think about our work on the farm-to-plate world. And then there was the masterful door opener, Susan Bartlett. Back in 1999, the minimum wage was $5.25 an hour, and she was the chair of the Senate Economic Development Committee. And Barbara Postman's here. She was on the House General Affairs Committee. There she is. And she was a major co-conspirator back at that time as well. And we were trying to win a multi-year minimum wage increase. And she and Susan suggested that we push through a 1-year 50-cent increase and do a summer legislative study about the potential and about the subject matter of livable income. And so we orchestrated this incredible team that just happened to get selected by the Joint Fiscal Office. Tom Cavett was the lead, and Doug Hoffer and Deb Brighton and Elaine McCrate were the researchers on this incredible study that was done to basically lay out the arguments and the data for why we should be increasing the minimum wage, moving towards this notion of livable income. And that really proved to be a pivotal moment, because that summer study committee then led to the legislature really owning the whole concept of basic needs and livable wages. It's meant that the Joint Fiscal Office now publishes livable wage numbers for the state every other year. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the country. It's also led to multi-year minimum wage increases in the Earned Income Tax Credit program. It even led eventually to a COLA-adjusted minimum wage, which is only 2 of them in the country. So just huge impacts, all because of that work that I had the privilege of doing with Doug. So I was also mentored along the way by some very important and progressive business members, people like Lisa Lormer, Kevin Harper, Pat Heffernan, Lawrence Miller, Will Rapp, Bill Schubart was a big one as well. And since being at the Sustainable Jobs Fund, which I have to say it was largely due to Kevin Harper's efforts, the support of Chuck Ross, has had a huge impact on our organization. And Jolinda LeClaire is here from the agency, also a major supporter and co-conspirator in this local food movement. So, of course, the work of the Jobs Fund only succeeds because of my incredible co-workers. Janice St. Ange, John Ryan, Anthony Monona, Scott Sawyer, Erica Campbell, Jake Claro, Stephanie Smith, and Rachel Carter are all here this evening, so thank you very much. They are so talented and dedicated, and I am just so thankful for the privilege that I get to work with them every day. And I also want to thank a number of key funders in the room, not only for nominating me for this award, but believing so much in the work that we do at the Jobs Fund. People like Gay Symington and Courtney Borns and Christine James and the staff and the fund holders at the VCF. You guys have been just incredible, sustaining supporters and thought leaders and partners in this work, so thank you. And of course, like in Khan's life, whose work would really truly have been diminished if it hadn't been for his incredible relationship with Jeanette, so too is the case for me with my wife, Susanna. So thank you, dear. So now I want to have a few thoughts about our shared future. Khan's passion has been about the quality of the human condition from a social service perspective. My passion has been about the quality of the human condition, although more from an economic perspective. We both come at our respective work by trying to change systems and structures. So the longer I do this work, the more convinced I am that we need to change the very foundation of our society and culture. Fundamentally, we need to build a culture of care, kindness, abundance, and connection, rather than perpetuating our current culture of indifference, fear, scarcity, and disconnection. Cultivating a culture of kindness requires us to understand a fundamental truth, that we are interdependent. My life and leadership has been dependent upon the many causes and conditions and people who have informed and influenced me, loved me, and opened doors for me over the years. I mean, let's face it, we ultimately all want the same thing. We just want to be happy. So what enables real happiness in our lives? Loving others, feeling loved by others, feeling a connection to others and to place, feeling worthy to be a human being, having the confidence that you can live your life with dignity and make a contribution to your family and your community. In short, happiness is generated when we get off the me plan and get on with the we plan, as Mipam Rinpoche likes to say. So Khan, Cheryl, really all of you in this room, I think, exemplify living and working in this way. And sometimes the we plan is hard to focus on because we're facing a lot of uncertainty. Climate change, shrinking state budgets and rising healthcare costs, social safety net costs just going through the roof, increased opiate addiction, physical, mental, sexual abuse, random mass shootings, the largest inequality ever in our nation's history. There's so many issues out there that it's just impossible to name them all, and it's so easy to fall into a feeling of despair about those issues. So I invite you to consider how our culture of fear and greed has been built and what this has led to. And then think about the desire we all have to be happy, to live from a place of hope and optimism for the future. What will most enable that? Will a culture of fear and greed lead us to be happy or solve the incredibly complex challenges we face as a species today? Or do we need a culture of kindness to help us get to happiness and a feeling of all rightness? I think we need to have a conversation about redefining wealth. Bill, I'm looking at you, counting on you to help us with this conversation. All across this country, really. We need to shift the definition of wealth from a level of accumulated money to a feeling of well-being, a feeling that you have enough. What would that take? What would the metrics be to gauge kindness, care, and enoughness in our society? So just think about it. If a person has a sense of well-being and enoughness and lives in a culture that reinforces that, then that person will want the same feeling of enoughness for others. It just works that way. So how might that affect our societal structures, our human services system, our economic system, and how we treat and interact with the planet and all beings that are on our home planet? So I'm posing these ideas and big questions to you, this room of my mentors, colleagues, and friends, because I have experienced you embracing and encouraging our interdependence over the last 25 years. As Vermonters, we all are well on our way towards creating this kind of culture of kindness, human dignity, and caring for others and our planet. This is a good place to live. The question is, how do we expand this so that there's more of us living and acting this way? So whether your view is from a social service, economic, environmental, or other perspective, remember the power you possess to affect real change. Within each moment, there contains the possibility that our actions can be sufficient to shift the scales towards kindness, equity, inclusion, and happiness. Again, thank you so very much for this award, and I hope I can live into Kahn's amazing legacy over the next 25 years. Thank you.
You may want to open up the top. Or not. You don't have to hit it, or maybe here's
I think you should help me.
your public calls you. I'll open it. Your public
Okay.
calls you. You can bow. Here it is. I'm presenting the plaque. Well done. And let's just hear it once more of this girl. I am going to do the wrap-up, which is going to be very brief, though. I have to say, as I was sitting here and the slides are going, first of all, I felt for you, Secretary Cohen. You had all that data. A lot of it is in your shop. God bless you. Carry on. You've got it made. And then Kahn. I was so distracted when you're sitting up on what I thought was a church steeple, but it wasn't. And I thought, what are those? There it is. What are those airplanes doing? Then I saw the banjo. I began to get it. So it was an interesting distraction. It's been a wonderful time out and refreshment, both from, and I'm going to say the data point of view, from the perspective of the power of data when it's interpreted, and so the publics can understand it. The users have a better notion of whether things are getting better, worse, or staying still. It's very powerful, particularly when good people can put the data into sentences so people know. So I have felt that it was truly an afternoon of refreshment. Then Ellen, and your very good questions, your challenges of calling us into thought, again, was refreshment, maybe not as comfortable as some questions, but such important questions. Thank you. Now, I'm going to let you in on a secret. When I was asked to MC, I said to Cheryl, most people in this room know, and if you didn't know, you're going to know right now, that Con Hogan needs, and I'm not kidding, needs a new kidney. And he's been waiting months for one. So I said to Cheryl, can I vet people when they come in to see if they might be the donor? She said, you're the MC. I thought about going to you, Ruth, because we feel strongly about this. Well, I thought, people, even though I've got some nice docs here and it's possible to kind of set up a room over there to do the blood testing, but maybe not. So consequently, this will be the wrap-up, and this is what I decided. Our gift in honor of Con and of the award, which I'm sure Ellen will agree with me, though we didn't discuss this. Our gift to you, Con, will be each person in this room, whether you call it karma, a good thought, prayer, or something else that I didn't think of, will be sent on to Con. Find the God-blessed kidney, please, Lord, and do it. We want it now. So, there you have it. And I do want to be sure that proper thanks is given to the providers, well, the funders and the providers of the hors d'oeuvres. They were fantastic. And thank you, whoever did it. And with that, safe journeys home, and thank you for coming.